Okay, I want to make a comparison of this Winchester 1897. I have two of them right here. This one particular one was made in 1900. It has a cuts compensator on it. And I did make a video on these two earlier, but what I want to do is compare it to the Norinco, Chinese-made 1897. I did take the cuts compensator off. I just unscrewed it. And, of course, the adapter soldered on, which deterred this in value. This is an original 20-inch Riot, 1897, made around 1900. This one, I believe, was 1902 or 1903. And this has a 28-inch barrel. This is a takedown model. This one is a fixed model. And then, of course, the Norinco, as you can see, is a fixed model also with a 20-inch barrel. Okay, so the comparison is, I don't think there's too many people that compared it. Maybe there is on YouTube. So this would probably be the easiest to compare it to the 20-inch cylinder bore instead of the 28-inch takedown. It is the same weight, believe it or not. This is 7.3 pounds, 7 pounds 3 ounces for the original, and this is 7 pounds 3 ounces for the Norinco. I actually thought this was heavier than the original in the Chinese made, but believe it or not, it's this exact same weight, and that's even subtracting off the adapter a little bit. So that I was amazed that it's the exact same weight. Now, as you can see, the older model, when this was made in 1900, it has the rounded pistol grip here. And then, of course, this one doesn't, because this is fairly new. But this is one of the originals that the Chinese made of almost the exact copy of the 1897. So this one is much better than the ones they made after this, because this one has true walnut. You can see the walnut stock. It's really nice. And then, of course, it has a walnut foregrip. See how nice that is? So the corn cob is close to the corn cob on the original. Well, here's the original here. This is an original corn cob. Okay. But it doesn't have the same amount of lines to make it a corn cob. This one is a fairly new corn cob that I replaced, that I mentioned in the first video, because the other one wasn't in good shape. This one was made around 1970s. So let's look at, let's see here. I mean, it's a shame I can't, one day I'm going to get a phone that I could stick on my head or something, and I'll be able to work these things with two hands. There are some differences. I don't believe 100% that you can interchange any of this. So, like, you can't change the bolt. You're not going to change the carrier. It is slightly different than the originals. But as you can see, the mill work, when they milled this out inside, this goes down on an angle right there. I don't know if you could see it right there. See how that goes down right there? And this particular one goes straight. See how that goes just straight in? So that's different. So you can see the innards are slightly different on the rails when it was milled inside for the bolt and the carrier. And also see the couple little milled imperfections that they did right here inside, right there, those two. And then, of course, on the Winchester, you don't have any of that. See, there's no imperfections up in this area. Again, I'm doing this with one hand, and it's a pain in the ass. So the carrier is slightly different in thickness. As you can see, this is slightly thinner than the original Winchester. Now, I did measure it, but it is just slightly. And if you look this way, you could get a good picture of it when the carrier's dropped out of the receiver. That was the original. And then let's look at the Chinese. So they're pretty close, you know. They're actually really close. But again, I know for a fact that you just can't take this carrier out and this bolt and put it in here. There's just no way it's going to work. But they made a really decent reproduction on the 1897, the Chinese. Now, I will have to say, even though it's the same weight, I'm sure the metal density is no comparison to the metal density on the Winchester. There's just no way in hell. Nobody's going to tell me that this metal is much better than this. And it just can't be, because, you know, when America was making the steel, especially back then, the early 1900s, it was really good quality made. You know, and then when the Chinese took over and made it cheaper, especially importing all the car parts and the cars, that metal was just garbage. And we know that. We know that the Chinese steel factories they're horrible in their metal. And they're decent quality, but they're not as good as the old-fashioned American steel metal. And believe me, I had a father-in-law that worked in one of the steel mills for years, and he would tell me the same thing, and he's not around anymore. But so could you imagine taking this in like World War I or World War II, the Chinese replica, and not taking this Winchester in World War I or World War II, which would outlast? I'm sure this one would outlast the Chinese any day. We just had good quality steel, you know. So again, it's pretty good copy of the original. I mean, like I said, you got the beautiful walnut. I mean, I have some nicks a little bit that I did, but this one is not really shot that much. You know, this one has been shot a lot, the Riot. And then this one actually is not as much as the Riot, so it's actually tight. So if you take the bolt, see how that moves a little bit? The tighter the bolt, the better. I mean, you don't want it too tight, because of course when you rack the slide, this won't go in as smooth. So it does have a little movement towards, you know, to it. So, but you can see this one. Okay, when I bring it back, there, you can still see it moving. And then if you take the Norinco, the Chinese made, oops, I'm trying to hold it up at the same time. Come on. All right, here we go. See that? Look at a lot of play in that. You can even hear it, see? All right. Now, this one is going to have a lot of play because it's been used a lot. So, see? Look at the play, the difference in that. This one's just like the Norinco, or even maybe a little more, because it's been used. But this one's not. This one's actually pretty nice. See? Not much play, you know? But, what else do I have to say about it? The barrel, like I said, is 20 inches, same as a Riot 20-inch or a trench gun. Like if this was a trench gun, it would be a 20-inch barrel. And then screws, let's see. So if you got all the screws in here, you got the pins, you got the carrier pin, which is the hammer. Let's see, this one, trigger. This is your release. And, oh no, this is not your release. These are your shells. And then your takeoff screw here. And then if you look at this one, it has the same thing. Well, of course, the older style doesn't have that. Where you drop the carrier for your shells. But it pretty much has the same setup. So let's try to get a little bit closer here. There you go. See? And they're pretty close. Has a little vent hole here. See, a little hole there, whatever that is. and another little hole there. So, but the milling inside is different, and it's not as smooth. You know, it's not as cut out for the carrier and the bolt to go in smoothly. This one's rough. It's not finished properly. So let's turn it around on this side. Let's see how close it is. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, you got your pin, your screw, or your other pin, I mean. So it's very, very close. You know? Now, let's look at this. So this is the side of the carrier of the Chinese, as you can see. Take a look at that really close. And then the Winchester. Chinese. I wish I could get this. There you go. Look how close that is. That is extremely close. I gotta buy some parts, you know. Buy some carriers and some bolts, because one day you're not gonna be able to get any of these parts. And it's just that they're gonna be obsolete with the population growth. So what I want to mention to you on the Norinco 1897, they made these first with the walnut, so which is really, really nice. And then they came out with a cheaper version, which is not as good parts. You could. I saw one and I felt it, and the parts are not well made, and the wood they make with like a cheap, I don't know if you call it pine or some type of Chinese wood, which is super, super cheap. And then they stain it like a deep red or some kind of red stain or paint stain, and it looks just horrible. And if you look on Gunbroker, you can look up some of the older ones or the ones that they sold in the Norincos and compare it to the walnut one, and you could see the wood is just crappy. So if you're going to spend $400 or $500 or $600 on one of these, make sure you get the one with the walnut. Don't buy the one with the red stain, because you're just wasting your money. And like I said, the parts are just not as good as the original Norinco that came out. So there you go. A comparison for the Winchester original 1897 Riot and the Norinco, which they call 97. They don't call it like an 1897. It's actually a 97, because if you look on the barrel here, focus it in. See, there you go. So it's the Norinco 97, and then it's manufactured by IAC, or importer maybe, IAC Billerica, MA, Massachusetts, I guess. Right there. Okay? IAC. And then, of course, the serial number would be here, the serial number. And then it says made in China. There you go. Beautiful China shit, right? But I give them credit for the money. Well, actually, for the money, you might as well just buy an original Winchester. So if you want to go, you know, top of the line, you could buy one of these for $400 to $600, depending on the condition. But of course, they go even more than that. And then what you could do is just cut the barrel down to 20 inches right here, and then put your beaded sight on, and then you'll have a sort of a Riot original Winchester. If you know how to cut the barrel down straight, touch it up a little bit, it would be better than buying one of these. But if you want new, of course, then you get one of these. So it's either or, which one you want. All right, have a good one, guys.